In this video I will be replacing the SD card reader in a Nintendo Switch Lite. These are a bit more awkward than a regular Switch because these aren't on a separate board. These are soldered directly onto the main motherboard. So I'm just going to show you how to do that because I couldn't see many videos online of how to do that. This is a replacement port that I've salvaged from another Switch Lite. So that's the one we'll be using. Now I've taken apart Switch Lites on this channel before, so I might just skip through this teardown. But if you're interested in learning that separately, just let me know and I can maybe make another video of just how to disassemble a Switch, and then you can go and watch that before proceeding with other repairs. But I'm just going to speed through this now and get to the motherboard of this. So now we're down to the motherboard. First thing you'll do obviously is to disconnect the battery so there's no power flowing through this. And then we can start taking more parts away and get to the motherboard itself. Again, I've gone through this before for other repairs, so I might skip through this as well. What I'll be doing is I'll be taking off the heatsink, the game card reader, the fan, this button here, and then I will be removing all the connectors and cables and removing the speaker along with the motherboard itself. So if you want a detailed explanation on how to do this, just let me know and I can make another video of just disassembling these things. But for now, I'm just going to skip through here. Okay, now we're down to the motherboard itself. This is the SD card reader. Hold on, there's buttons here. This is the SD card reader. This is the part we will be desoldering and taking away. Oops, it is it. Now on the other side, normally what I would do is I heat up from the bottom. For these kinds of things, like a charging port or if I change the connector, heat up from the bottom because you don't want direct heat on this. There is, however, a wee LED there. I'm not too sure what that's for. Must be something to do with development or debugging, and a switch. And I found that if I use a nozzle on my heat gun, it puts direct heat on those and damages them. So I'm going to take the nozzle off my heat gun, have the heat more evenly spread out so it won't actually damage those and still will heat the board. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to get this on a wee stand and start heating this up and taking it off. Okay, so normally what I would do is I'd hang this off the end of the bench here and there'd heat from the bottom, but it's kind of hard to get that on camera. So I've just had this in a wee holder and I've tilted it back so I can get at the bottom of the heat gun. Now I'm going to have my hot air station set to full speed and I'm going to set it to 480 degrees, especially because it's going to have no nozzle on it, so the heat will be spreading out, so it needs to be a bit hotter to get this to do what it needs to do. Right. So this is what it looks like, no nozzle. I'm just going to gently heat the area here just because I don't want one part directly heated too much. I want to kind of get the whole thing warmed up a bit so there's no thermal shock and no chance of bending or buckling or breaking or anything. Alright, that might be alright there now. I'm going to hold this on here. Try and get this directly heated now. Now it takes a bit longer for this because there's no nozzle on it, but that's also just to stop the heat from directly affecting that wee switch and everything underneath, so I'd rather wait a bit longer than do damage. Starting to move already. Yeah, there we go. That's the board off, and you can see that there's no damage done to that. If this was a working board, it would still be usable the way it is by taking it off using that method. Now I'm going to have a look at the other side of the board as well when it cools down and see what the switch looks like now and show the difference between using a nozzle and no nozzle to show the difference in the direct heat on that switch and when it's spread out. So once it cools down, I'll get it off this holder and I'll show that. So yeah, you see underneath that switch is completely fine and that LED has no burn marks or discoloration on it. So that just shows you the difference in the nozzle with direct heat and without it. The heat gets more spread out, still does what it needs to do, but that switch is still clicky there, still works fine. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some more fresh solder to these pads and then heat again and put on our new SD card reader. So I'm going to start getting the soldering iron heated up for that. Now I'm going to just clean off that flux there. I don't want any used flux on this board. Normally I would just say if that was a connector or something not as sensitive, I would just throw the new one on with that old flux, but because it's SD card reader, it's going to be quite hard to clean if flux does get into it. I just want to make sure the board is as clean as possible before I before I do put the new SD card reader on. I'm not even going to bother using flux in for putting it on. I'm actually just going to reflow it into place, and then if I need to, then I'll do some work around the edges, but I just don't want any flux inside the SD card reader because it will interfere with the switch detecting the card and everything. So I'll do it the same way. I will get it back into the wee holder and put the new one on. Now I'm just going to rearrange this camera so it's a bit closer to the edge because I just don't want too much of a tilt in this, otherwise the SD card reader will slide out of place. So I'm just going to bring everything closer to the edge of the bench here and we'll do it from there. So this might actually be the easiest way to show it. I just have the stand gone and I'm hanging it off the edge of the bench the way I normally do it, and I'll just show you exactly how it goes on a day-to-day basis rather than having to adjust it for the camera. So I hang it off the edge of the bench and I heat from underneath. So I'm going to get my hot air station now heating up, and I'm going to do it exactly the way I would normally do it, and you can see just how it goes without it being from an awkward angle. So hot air station up to 480 again. So just get our hot air gun just sitting underneath. Again, just moving it around a bit to heat the general area. And now some direct heat on there. And I'm just going to drop this SD card reader into place, and once the solder melts, the surface tension of the solder should pull the SD card reader into the position it needs to be in. I just want to make sure those pins are lined up properly at the back there. See, it's starting to liquefy a little bit now. Hopefully that'll all pull itself back into place. Might need a wee bit of a nudge here to help it in. There we go. Now that's in place there now. I'm just going to hold it. Just very, very slight pressure a little bit till it cools. There we go. And now I'm going to go over those joints again and make sure they're all solid, especially these pins at the back here. I don't think they're fully enveloped in solder, so I'm just going to go over them a little bit with a fine soldering tip. So I'm going to bring the camera back up now to the overhead view and show you that. So this is what it looks like here. See, there's those pins in the back. They look like they might not be the most solid, so I'm going to go over all of these again. Well, these ones actually look fine, but I'm going to go over these ones especially at the back with a solder iron and make sure that they're all solid. So yeah, I'm going to use a little bit of flux here, not too much. I don't want it seeping into the SD card reader, but just enough to help those pins reflow properly and make a nice clean joint. Let's heat this up a little bit more. Get our fume extractor back on. There you go. This joints look a little bit better now. And let's go over these ones as well, is why we're here. Now, that's them all gone over there now. Just going to give us a quick test. I don't really feel the need, but just for the sake of better safe than sorry, I just give them a wee quick test here. And yeah, they are all solid. Perfect. Just going to give that a wee quick scrub. So we can put this all back together now and test this on the console to see is it still having any issues. The issue was that it would all the time read when you put it in, but then after a while the console would think the SD card disconnected. And originally I thought it was a problem with some of the mechanisms here, like the spring, so I fixed all that and it worked for a while. Then the customer had the same issue, so I decided to go ahead and change the whole SD card reader. So we've done that now and we can start putting this all back together. Again, I might just skip through this part because I've done this before on the channel and this isn't really the point of the repair. It's more to show how to change that SD card reader rather than take things apart. Now I'm just applying some new thermal paste to this because once I break the old bond, I like to just replace it completely. I'm using MX4 Arctic, but you can use whatever brand suits you. I don't think you need too high a quality thermal paste for the Switch. It doesn't seem to get that hot, just that you need a special thermal paste. This is just what I have. I use it for everything, so I just use it for the Switch too. Just going to quickly test it now and make sure it still reads the SD card, and then if it does we can properly test it when it's on properly and back together. Okay, so yeah, it does read the card definitely. Okay, now it's all back together and we know the SD card reader was a success because it's reading it every time I put it in. Now I'm going to properly test this now, leave it on for a few hours playing a game and see does it come across the same problem. But I'm going to end the video here because this video was to show you how to change an SD card reader, it wasn't how to sort this specific problem. But if it doesn't sort it and there's more investigation to be done, or if there's another issue to do with this, I will post it up on my social media or on another video to show you how to fix that, just in case it's something else that people would be beneficial for people to know. But yeah, you see that that's recognizing the card, no problem, so I think that might be the problem sorted. But I'm going to end the video there now. Thank you very much for watching and I hope that was helpful.